Yes, meow, meow. I don't know why I'm saying meow. Hi, my name is Bowie, and I'm here today to talk to you about life cycle analysis and the two sides of what life cycle analysis can be. So on one side, oh no, I can't use this. I feel like it's long, complicated algorithms because it's really come from a very difficult, nerdy area. And what I would love to do in today's journey is to bring it more into normal people, so long, creative adventures. So that's the plan today, and I look forward to bringing you with me. So a bit of a background about who I am. My name is Bowie, it's a short name. I now run a consultancy of me, and have decided to step out of brands because I wanted to be able to take the experience that I've got and share it back into the industry. And as you can see, I've worked through the entirety of the value chain, but that puts me in a really great position to be able to offer LCAs and talk to and support everybody in the industry. So I've been coming to performance days since it first started. I've worked and have been connected with LCA in 1997 when I did my thesis, and have since always had this element of sustainability in my heart. And I've kept it going all the way through and fighting with brands trying to get this embedded. So my life and journey is not without a fight. And you can ask people who have worked with me that it is always a fight, but it's worth it. So I've worked in retail, I've worked at Unilever, so washing machines, washing garments, so understanding about the use, worked in some of the bigger sports brands, and always considered life cycle analysis as part of that journey. I also do quite a bit of fighting for awareness for my skin, which I also think is really important because it's different. So awareness, education is a bit of a thing that I do. I also eat and make cakes. So that creativity is also really important. Okay, and I think for me, what I really enjoy is fighting for doing something that's right, even though it's not easy. And I would say that in life, that comes up all the time. So, especially LCA. So what I also love to do is to take difficult topics, make them much smaller, make them bite-sized, make them delicious, because otherwise you just get overwhelmed with so much information that's in the industry, and it's just saturating. And I feel for me, there's lots of talk at top level, and then there's us who are working. And it's us who are working that I want to support, because these actions of what we're doing, what we're selecting here, has the impacts. And so if we can change, or we can have a different mindset, we can do it for the better. So the plan is today, and I have a bit of a mini agenda, is to look at what we and where we are today, which is quite complicated, and demystify that, so make it understandable. Have this mindset shift that I hope to bring with you. You can come with me. And then finally see this lovely creative adventures. And then I really want to show you a real case scenario of what I've done. And remember, I like coloring in. And then 2 slides, one on business benefit, because if you take it back to your business, you need to justify it, and some action steps. These are also really critical if you want to start. And I have an icon up here for hands up, because I would love to be asking you questions during. Yay! Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is, if you haven't got your phones out, do get your phones out, because why not? And I'd love for you to be able to use this QR code and to be able to put your thoughts in, either 1 word, 2 words, or 3 words, it's up to you, on what you feel and what your thoughts are on LCA. It could be, I'm in love with them, I hate them, they're expensive, they're boring, they're ingenious. You tell me.
Bowie, you know you're making our expert talks area more professional than we really are. We are not geared up for
Killian.
it. Thank you. Thank you, without a doubt. We need to do this more regularly.
Brilliant, brilliant.
If any of you guys get asked for feedback, say Bowie's better than Charles. We need to move to Bowie level.
Nice. So Killian, who's sitting on the right-hand side of the box, my new best friend, is going to switch the screen to the Mentimeter so that we can see your results. I hope. Is it going to work? Charles has just said it's really good, and now it's like, it's not working. But let's see. Are you able to put in answers? Yes. Yay! Brilliant. Okay, nice, nice. So let's see. We have in here, I would like to know, they're complicated, they're tricky, impact assessment, important, necessary, difficult, cradle to cradle. Nice. Nice overview of what's in there. Oh, somebody's put in fun. That's nice. Yes. Thank you very much, friend. But it's quite interesting. There's not a lot of love there. I mean, there could be more. But I think it's interesting to see, you know, the non-transparent, but it has quite a lot of knowledge. I think for me, LCA is quite misunderstood. It's like a, you know, middle child. It's like, we need the love. Okay, so let me go back to my presentation, if that's okay, Killian. That would be super. Sorry, black screen. I could do a tap dance, but yeah. Okay, this is the one that I did 6 months ago. That was my backup. Always have a backup. It's not so dissimilar, right? It's also quite interesting, the context of words that we have for LCA. So my job is to make it exciting and palatable for everybody. Okay, so let's start to think about what is an LCA. For me, I feel like this is a detective story. You need to take a product or a company, and you start to work backwards and dig into all the details as if you're investigating. And you can start from the cradle. So we have these words a lot. What's your raw material? And you go through the complete cycle of your product, so manufacturing, knitting, dyeing, finishing, the use. So it doesn't stop at the shop, which is where people call it gate, and go all the way through to also use and recycling and what happens at the end of life. And that's the grave. And it's about collecting all that information and being able to analyze it, document it, and calculate the impacts on the environment. That's the plan. It's so easy, right? And a normal LCA report, I have to say, with all disrespect to the nerds who are doing LCAs, you know, they're like over 100 pages. It's quite long, it's quite heavy. And, you know, I've read a few. If I can't read it while I'm in the toilet, I'm like, okay, give it a miss. So it's like, pass. So how do you put an LCA together? The framework is quite simple. You have a goal and a scope, so you always ask why. You then create your inventory, which is collecting all the data. And then you do the analysis, the assessment, just like that. And then all the way in between, you're always looking for interpretation. You're always looking to question yourself and reassess and think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's it. That's simple, right? Or not. So I sort of beg that it's not so simple, and this is the plan for today. In 1990, this is when LCA first started. And in 1996 or 95, 6, I started uni. And apart from drinking and learning about textiles, I also wrote my thesis on LCA. So I bought this instead of going out drinking one night. So it was a big commitment. And then I wrote my thesis. And the thesis was called, Is Life Cycle Analysis a Viable Methodology to Apply to Textile Printing? So put your hands up if you think it's a yes. Is it a viable methodology to apply? Hands up for yes. Oh, a few. Nice, nice. Is it a no? It's not a viable methodology. No. Oh, okay. You're both right. Because in the conclusion, and I'll not read it all to you, but it's in textiles, as you know, there's so many variables. And data in 1996, 97, nobody was collating data. And so to be able to find, you know, good data that you can base question marks and ask what's right, what's wrong, it was nearly impossible. And things have changed so much. What hasn't changed so much are the hotspots. Can anybody guess or call out any of the hotspots that they imagine? Anyone? Nobody? Nobody? Okay. The 3 hotspots, which hasn't really changed for over 30 years, the raw materials, wet processing, and use of end of life. And how crazy is that? Is that 30 years ago, when I had black hair, it's still the same hotspots that it is today. And that's good and it's bad. It's good because we know, we can see the progression, but it's sad because we're still facing the same problems and we haven't changed. So something has to give. Okay, number one, the complicated algorithms. If anybody's read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the answer is already there. The answer is 42. It's a number. It's easy. But what was the question? And that's something you start with when you do your LCA. What we see and what we can imagine to happen in the industry is that you have products with a score on. But my question for us is, what does the score mean? What does 44 mean? What does 42 mean? You know, who cares? Is it relevant for me? Can you have a baseline? Is it better or worse than last year? What do we do with the information? And I guess the thing that hurts me the most is, or gets me the most is, are we going to change our habits? What are we going to do differently if we know it's 42 or 44? Do we want it to be better? Do we want it to be worse? And that's missing. So I think we need an education to go along with this tool. It's not just a number. So there are some limitations with LCA, as we know. Collecting data is particularly difficult. I've just spent the last year working with Textile Exchange on their LCAs and asking a farmer in Mongolia to collect data for his herd is nearly impossible, and yet we're asking for this, which is fair, but let's put ourselves in their shoes. It's really quite complex, also for cotton, for organic cotton. The transparency is tough, it's time-consuming, it's cost-intensive, and of course, once you've got your 100-page document, what are you going to do? Who's going to read it? Me not. So I like pictures. So there's lots with issues and problems. And so my help, why I'm here today, is to help demystify it. And I feel like there's two spaces. There's the planet, and then there's us. And both of those have health problems. Are we eating microplastics? Do we have bad health? Do we need to be better? Is the planet running out of water, of raw resources? Yes. So let's think about LCAs in a different perspective. How many of you have had a blood test any time in your life? Put your hand up. Nice, nice interaction, nice, nice. Okay, so you get your blood test. And the blood test is a bit like an LCA. You give some input, you get data back, and you need an interpretation. And then you get a recommendation, and then you go away and do the recommendation, do more sports, take this tablet, do this, do that. And then you go back to the doctor for another check-in to see if the numbers have changed. So the question is, how often do you go? Do you go once in your life? No. You go more than once. You go on a regular basis to have a check-in, similar to an LCA. And I also feel, I'm going down the food route here, LCA is a bit like a diet. You need to take measurements on a regular basis. Do you do it daily? Do you do it weekly? Do you do it monthly? The data input is also really important. Is it based on weight? Is it based on food? Is it calories? Is it American? Is it ounces? Which is what I'm doing now. It's so difficult with ounces. And then how accurate are you going to be? Are you going to be chillax? Are you going to be OCD? Let's have a look. And it's tough. When you don't get the results that you want and you don't get them quick enough, it's frustrating, just like an LCA. So I asked you the question, if you're going to do a weekly diary of food, if you just write down your drinks, is that going to be enough for you to get a good enough LCA or diet representation? Yes or no? No. Thank you, man with sandwich. If you do snacks as well, is that enough? Okay. If you do drinks, snacks, and dinner, is that enough information? Interesting, he said yes. Okay, an ideal situation is that you're doing all your tiers. So snacks, breakfast, drink, lunch, dinner, breakfast. You look at your full diary. And then, of course, the question is how much effort? Are you just going to be like, yeah, I ate today. Great. What's that going to tell us? Or are you going to be like OCD? Are you going to be like, I'm going to write down everything, I'm going to weigh everything, I'm going to take a photo of everything, and that's the nerd status? I feel like we need to shift from here so that we have a food diary that everybody can plug in, and it's easy to use, and it's fun, and it's pretty. And again, same principle for LCAs. Another question, if we've got a chocolate chip muffin that's organic, do you remember this from Puma? Okay. You've got, I don't know, date bars or healthy bars, or you've got an apple. Which one do you think is the best for you? Any hands up for chocolate chip muffin? Yeah, baby. I like you already. Yes, yes. I would say yes, too. OK, and what about for the bar in the middle? So maybe. And what about the apple? Is the apple healthy? Oh, so nice. But that's really interesting. So that's just on the look and the perception. When you do an LCA, you can be surprised by data. Without asking more questions, we're never going to know the real answer. So the apple could be completely like organic, could be made in my back garden, have no preservatives, no fertilizers, could be amazing. But the chocolate chip muffin, it also could be great. It could be gluten-free, it could be sugar-free, it could be organic, it could be also homemade. And again, until we ask the questions, you don't know. And that's the same for this trade show. Ask the questions about where the products are coming from. Ask about the ingredients. Find out more about your product before you say yes to it. So this is where I'm having my mindset shift. The LCA is just a tool to help you make decisions. It's not the be-all and end-all. We need the interpretation as well. But what the LCA can do is set some measurements in place, and it can help you track and trace your journey. Much like a diet, you need a baseline. And then, of course, how detailed do we need to be to collect and identify the hotspots? Gentleman who's still eating, he's on his second course, said we don't need to go so detailed to find out what the hotspots are, which is so true. Why kill yourselves just to get data, which is so difficult and so complex? We don't need to. And then the biggest thing for me is, what do you do with that number 42 or 44? We have to react. And that is part of the decisions on fabric selection, on quantities of fabrics, on finishes, on product development. This is what we need to have an impact on. And we don't need to wait for perfection, so we can just get on and do it. So I had an aha moment while I was working on LCAs, for anybody who's like my age who knows aha. And I thought, what's really frustrating with these LCAs, apart from being expensive and difficult and complicated, is that the muffin's already been eaten, and then you're calculating it. So if you look at all the brands who are investing in some LCAs, the products have been made, the impact has been done on the planet. You've made 10,000 pieces, 100,000 pieces, 1 million pieces. You've taken the resources. You've made the products. The damage is done. It's too late. So why are we calculating it? We need to take the tool and bring it right back to the beginning where we're making innovation and make decisions before we make 10 million thousand products that are actually half of them going to be dumped. So I feel like bigger picture, as well, the quality of the data that we're collecting, it has to be really important. I know a lot of brands and suppliers and material suppliers, ingredient suppliers are bending over backwards to collect their LCA data, and it's amazing. But we need that quality all the way through the value chain to put it together. We also would love to be, or I would love to see it being more agile, so that instead of just paying a lot of money and 6 months later you have your 100-page document, you can play with a tool like it's a game, like Roblox, Fortnite, whatever, and you just think you can change it before you make it. And I think some things are common sense, you know? Let's not make this too complicated. So let's shift into the nicey bit. My vision would be is that we challenge the complexity. Remember, I love coloring in. So if we can do this, great. If we can build an agile system and that we change the mindset of what we're doing and still have fun. So what I chose to do after reading and making my LCA back in 96, 97 was to revisit LCA, and the big difference was the software. So for me, I wanted to challenge to see if I can update it. I wanted to use the connections that I have in textiles and all the way through the value chain, use the experience and call a friend if I don't know, use primary data and challenge myself, numbers and coloring in. These can be friends. And also, I made mistakes. My first LCA was on a toaster. Why do I care? Anyway, I did it, I messed it up, and then I had to learn it again. Fine, we have to do this. Hands up soon. So I think having fun with this technology is also really important because it's quite dry. It is sometimes just Excel sheets, and I'm not a fan of that, but it's a different way of working. So be brave. I'm going to show you a very pretty software, and I don't mean to demean anybody, but I think for me, it's very focused, it's very visual, so it's quite exciting. It's cost effective, because I could afford it, and it's an investment that you can have, and it gets you to look at the bigger picture. And what made me think, having done a cradle-to-cradle collection, I had to switch around creating products from the bottom up, and that made a big difference. And so I feel like if you get your core ingredients right, if you get your raw materials correct, the rest of what you make from it just fits in perfectly and you have less worry. What I mean by that is, if you have eggs and maybe they're sourced locally from the local farm instead of from Aldi, if you've got butter, which is also from the farm, you've got a bio flour, sugar from your local producer, if you took those 4 ingredients, eggs, sugar, butter, flour, what can you make? Who cooks at home? Who cooks? What can you make from flour, sugar, eggs? Pancakes, excellent. What else can you make? What else can you, man who eats, what else can you make? Muffins, excellent. What else can you make? Dough. From dough, you can make bread. So already with some basic ingredients, if you get those right, you can start to build up your product the other way, and it's clean, and it's much safer and much better. You have the LCA data from scratch. So flip around what we know. Okay, I'm going to give you a case study, and then I'm nearly done. Am I good for time? Okay. So always with an LCA, you don't just do it because generally for a lot of people it costs a load of money and takes a lot of time. So the first thing to do is really ask the question of why are you doing the LCA? What do you want to find out about your product? And a lot of people miss this. They just get on and go, yeah, I've done it. Look, here's my certificate on iGreat, buy my product. But we can't do that. We need to do it for a reason. Same for diet. I need to think about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. There needs to be the why, the connection. Then you can set your scope and boundaries of what you will cover. And it is still really important to think about your functional units, the use of the product, so don't just stop until when it's produced, but think about how that product will be used. How will it be recycled? How do you want it to be recycled? And what will happen to the product when it's finished at the end? Because these are all really important to think about when you're part of design. There are some ISO standards you need to conform to, but hey, if I can do this, you can do this. And whatever you do, if you choose to not have something in there, just write it down. It's fine. Okay, then we brainstorm and take lots of post-its. It's great. You know, where are we? Who are we? Where do we want to be? What have we used? What have we not used? Who was your supplier? Where are they based? Where's the logistics? And just get in a room with some friends and pick up the phone if you don't know the answer and just map it out. And then you can digitalize it, send it to friends, and get them to be connected with you, because it's not a single-player game. And then just start. Just start some calculations. Start putting it together, because it doesn't need to be perfect, and it never, ever, ever will be perfect. So it doesn't matter. So for the case study that I did, I took the classic polyester T-shirt that we all love and hate, but still wear it. It was a football jersey. And I took a virgin polyester product, which is my baseline. I took polyester from bottles, which is where we are today, but don't want to be. And then I also took another jersey, which is fiber-to-fiber recycling, so garment-to-garment post-consumer waste. And I wanted to look at comparing them. I specifically said it was thermomechanical recycling, and the difference between the first two and the first two are cradle to gate, or cradle to grave, sorry, so at least end of life. And with the final product, I could use cradle to cradle, so all the way back through in a calculation, back to going back into the product. And that's the ultimate scenario, the holy grail of where we need to be to. This is the software that I used. It's so nice. Okay, part of my love affair with this software thing. So you start with the planet in the middle. And I love it because it keeps you connected to the bigger picture. So sometimes we get bogged down in numbers and we forget to think about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then without having any other numbers on this slide, you can see I built the schematic to be your tier 1, your garment maker, your tier 2, your fabric mill, and your tier 3, your spinning. And without having any numbers in, you can already see that the spinning has the biggest blue bubble, which means it's got the biggest impact. So simple, so easy, so visual, so exciting. And this, you can already start to talk to people in design, in the business, who don't have to be number freaks. And it's great. I just love it. And you can change it. You can play it with it within a minute. You can change some information, and it's agile. It's just so exciting, just so pretty. I did ask if I could change the blue to a different color, but they said no. So I thought, okay, it's just too far. Doesn't matter. Okay. And then I've got a couple of testimonials down the side to show. So you can build this out and build it into any way you want. And you can also extract information, and you can create databases, you can give information, you can share it into presentations. At this point, this was my toaster, which I'm very proud of, that I made. And you can look at the top 5 impacts to the environment. You can actually look at all 16 midpoint indicators. It's also connected to databases like EcoEvent, the PEF 3.1. It would be 3.11 now. But you get the latest databases in. And you can also add in very quickly your own primary data when you have it. So you can always upgrade and make it better. But at least you get the schematic. So pretty. And I would like to share with you, because last time I didn't have this, the results of those 3 jerseys, just out of interest. So when you look at cradle to gate, and that's until the end of the shop, because actually who this was for was a brand, and they said less interested, sadly, about the grave part, but they wanted to know the impact up into the gate. You can see that Virgin, so on this side, Virgin, you can look at the numbers of the CO2 equivalent. You can see the GRS equivalent, so PET bottles. And then, using common sense, we would know already that fiber-to-fiber recycling is less. It's brilliant. But now we have evidence. And we did the same to grave. So that's really when it gets recycled and landed. And you can see it's the same impact. It's lower when you do fiber to fiber. We knew this. Now we have the data to substantiate it. 2 slides left. So the business benefit. When we talk about ESPR, I really feel like eco-design is for the full value chain. There's a lot of emphasis on just design, but sometimes we feel that design doesn't have the sourcing support, or it doesn't have the financial final decision. And so when we talk about design, it's designing logistics, transportation, where the product's going to be manufactured, which supplier, all the way through to who's it being sold to, how will it be washed, where will it be recycled. So it's much, much bigger. And so we need to look at tier 4 all the way to end of life. Locations, logistics have an impact. And of course, we know this is all going to come to the DPP. It's all going to come back to the brands who need to be responsible for the final product. Second is to work agile and to be proactive. Take the tool and shift it to the beginning in innovation. And before we have these massive impacts on the environment, let's think about that for at least 2 minutes and think, how am I going to make the product? Is it not going to be innovative when we can use this tool up front before you make decisions? And you can do these checks as you build your product and just very quickly guesstimate if it's going to work or not work. And then plan now for the future. The products you're buying now for the near future, we're going to be almost near 2030. That's a deadline for so much. The third thing is that LCA is just a tool for decision making. You need to have this with you as well. You need to have this. You need to look at continuous improvement and investment for the future. It's so critical. Takeaways.
Keep an eye on our tech machine demonstrations that are regularly taking place on
One slide.
Technology Hub in Hall C4 with JC.
Okay, hang on. Okay, last slide. Takeaways. If you were going to do this tomorrow, which you can, just give me a ring, get the software, job done. Take a key product, a huge impact product driver. Don't take a niche or a special collection. Take a key product and its supply chain and map it out as far as you can back to the raw material and think about the recycling options. Work with your suppliers. I mean, they're here. Chat to them. Generally, the people in the supply base know their business. They know it inside out, and they've collected data for 100 different people, and it's super frustrating to ask for more. If you ask the experts who are the suppliers who know, they can help you with this as well. And yes, of course, make new friends. That's the other one. Use the resources which are already out there. You can get secondary data easily. Of course, we want primary data, but talk to people and collect the data that already exists, and you can build in, as you go, the primary data. And train up, and even bring it in-house for software. You don't have to pay millions and thousands for external consultants. Bring it in-house, because we're going to need to use this more and more. I can also help if you need this. And be prepared to make mistakes, to fail. It doesn't matter. It's about continuous improvement. The diet that I'm on for these first 6 weeks has not been perfect, but life is not perfect. So it's fine. Accept, carry on. And always think bigger picture. Remember, it's not just about lunch or drinks or snacks. We have to look at the complete diary. And that's it. Keep it really simple. Don't overcomplicate LCAs. They don't need to be complicated. They just want to be lovely and creative. That's it. Any questions, let me know. Or connect, also fine.
More importantly, can we initially show our appreciation for what Bowie's just done? Now, she slipped in a line in that last segment, which you should all pay attention to. Bowie's a consultant. She's actually a relatively cheap consultant, because she's a one-man band. If you now understand LCAs better than you did half an hour ago, imagine the effect that she could have in your company.
Oh,
she can explain it, but also do it. So I'm filling until I see a hand go up with questions. You don't need to ask a question, because I'm going to trap Bowie by the corner of the stage afterwards if you want a one-to-one conversation. But does anyone want to initially kick off? Otherwise, I ask her a hard question. Does anyone else want to volunteer? Bowie, I'm going to ask you.
You can ask me.
You covered it in the presentation, but I want you to re-emphasize a point about primary and secondary data LCAs.
Yes.
Please explain the importance between them.
Yeah,
I know they're massive cost differences.
Yes.
But what's the value?
They are. So if you have secondary data, okay, I'm going to bring it back to my food. It's like, I can't help it. Oh, you stopped eating, sir. Oh, that's such a shame. Okay, so if, for example, I was going to write in my food diary for today a general lunch, and then I would be like, yeah, pasta sauce, or I had breakfast, or I had like pretzel. It's just generic information that everybody can get. What we're trying to do with primary data is get specifically my data that I've eaten for my day, and then it's real. And then I can react to it. And it's like that in the industry. If I'm collecting data and I'm just doing a guesstimation, it's great, it's fine, it's in the right direction, but it's not half as good as getting the real data in your product, in your t-shirt, in your supply chain, with your logistics and your country base, because then that's your product and you can react to it differently. That's the big difference. Does that help?
Completely. can I, as I'm going to shepherd Barry off stage in a moment, can I ask
Yeah.
you to show your appreciation for our star up here, please?
Hi.